Hello and welcome to the ICT Pulse podcast. I'm Michelle Marius, your host and the editor and publisher of ICT Pulse, the online platform where we discuss ICT issues from a Caribbean perspective. For our February 2019 community chat, joining me today are Nerissa Golden, who we had on the community chat last year. Nerissa is based in Montserrat and she's the CEO of Golden Media, and she's also the managing editor of Discover Montserrat and the founder of Maverick Endeavors. And we also have Stephen Williams, who is joining us for the first time. Stephen is the executive director of Sun Isle Communications Inc., which does business as Sun Isle Technology Solutions in Barbados, where it was one of the first internet consulting firms established there. Nerissa and Stephen, welcome.
Thank you, Michelle. Good to be here again.
So in this community chat, we will be discussing two job-related topics. First, leveraging technology to increase job opportunities, which Nerissa will guide us through. And second, the opportunities and threat to the Caribbean ICT skills market, given the dynamics of a big data-driven world, which Stephen submitted for discussion. All right, so let's get started. So leveraging technology to increase job opportunities. Nerissa, when we listen to the prevailing thoughts and concerns of the masses, and even those in leadership positions, generally there seems to be a fear of job losses due to technology. And also here in the Caribbean, whilst we have a fair portion of our population that might be well-educated or even considered highly educated, relatively speaking, and in terms of the masses, which are the ones who tend to be concerned about the impact of technologies on jobs, they are not as educated as perhaps we might like. So what is your thinking about how we can better leverage technology to increase job opportunities?
Thanks, Michelle. We can't put the genie back in the bottle. Technology is here. It's already changing the way we live and work. And so it's about adapting our lives and our circumstances to make sure that it's working for us rather than against us. Now, I know Stephen is going to come and hopefully give the other side of the coin. But for me, I'm very much of a proponent for using the technology to definitely expand our opportunities. And that's something that we don't have a choice about anymore. Around the region, the government tends to be the largest employer. And we've seen in the last few years that lots of these governments are beginning major layoffs. What happens to these people when they suddenly are without that government job that they thought was going to be permanent? And they're not prepared to work in a space where they've now got to fight for every dollar. We are competing with not just people in other Caribbean islands, but now anywhere around the world. And so we need to be able to use the same technologies that they are using to create those opportunities for ourselves as well.
Stephen?
I was listening carefully, and you are correct. I mean, you said that I was going to probably put a different spin on it, but I think you summed it up well. I would just add that, those who are complaining about the job losses, they have nowhere to go. And it is unless they retool themselves. And that's my concern. My concern is that what they were accustomed to is no longer there. It is not the same world anymore. And you are right, when the majority of, or the single largest employer is government, government was able to sustain archaic forms of doing business for longer than they should have been. And now you have a set of people coming out of the civil service who it is extremely difficult for them to actually maneuver. But the problem steps in where the private sector is supposed to take up those jobs. But I don't see this private sector stepping up and being innovative and creating new opportunities. And I don't see the development of new startups driven by technology. So that is doubling down on the problem. So if you have people coming out of the civil service, the only place to go and work is the private sector. But the private sector is not creating any new jobs because they too are faced with the realization that you can't put the genie back in the bottle, as you said, Nerissa. And then you have a situation where they have not been innovating to create new opportunities and capacity to grow their own businesses because they've been doubling down, like government, on the old business model. So it's creating a bottleneck in terms of where do these people go?
Very, very true. Just last night, I was helping my son with an essay, and one of the things that we surmised was that the young people are who are going to change this situation. Because you're very right, the private sector, which is very much led by older companies, older people who may generationally own certain businesses, they are continuing to do the same thing. And what I see happening in Montserrat is that younger people, millennials, who are suddenly coming into the marketplace and not having that legacy behind them, they're also more willing to take some risks, try some new things. They're allowing things to, in some cases, for prices to drop, because suddenly you have more options for something that was once only handled by one company. And two, they're using technology very effectively to make sure that they're not just Montserrat-based companies, but suddenly they can compete with other people on other islands and in other places. So I don't know that it's going to make sense for us to try to get the older heads to change. It really is about creating a space for our younger people to do that. One of the things I'm actually quite concerned about are the people who leave a job, especially government sector, and they're now moving into private sector, or maybe they want to decide to be a consultant, but they're kind of in a jam because they don't know how to suddenly create a name for themselves. So, and if you ask them, they could name a bunch of people that they admire, that they read, that they look at, that they listen to, but they aren't seeing themselves in that same way as somebody that has great value to add to the conversation. And that is absolutely what's missing. We are not. There are not enough of us talking and sharing our value in the bigger scheme of things, not just around the region, but globally. And that's what is actually going to make us more competitive.
What I would just add from there, from my local perspective, is that I still don't think we have a good grasp of what we have to offer the world. Mm-hmm. Because I have taken on a couple of interns this period in our community college's educational cycle. And it is occurring to me more and more that our young people are coming up with skills, but not are able to see the opportunities in who we are. When we look at the Facebooks, when we look at the Twitters and the Instagrams, and we all gravitate towards those platforms, I'm not seeing our young people come up with those skills and build the Caribbean version, not of Facebook or Instagram, but what do we have to offer the world that is uniquely ours that we can then build upon? Because it's one thing to come up with the big data skills and the programming skills and the data analytics. Because if you come up with that perspective and that technological prowess, then you're really looking for a job if you can translate your skills into something that you can build with your hands. So it is still a mystery to me how we're going to cross that bridge of doing what's new, but also having an entrepreneurial spirit to create something that's uniquely Caribbean. And I'm not seeing platforms getting traction, because that's going to help take up some of the jobs of the more experienced people. If you have young people creating these innovative products, what the older, more experienced people can bring is leverage that experience and infuse it with what young people have to offer a stable, globalized product, because these are the people that know what it was to be in business and how to be in business. Young people are busy trying to create the new thing and might not know those business skills. But what we're not having is that fusion of experience with youthful enthusiasm and ideas, because it seems that we have a lot of people that are not talking to each other.
Right. Now, that is a cultural, conundrum that we've had for decades, is that as much as you've seen this push and this investment in entrepreneurship, what you are not seeing, and you're right, is the transference of knowledge. One of the biggest challenges, because I'm also a business coach, that we often have is finding mentors and coaches for our young entrepreneurs. I have a mentee right now who's in a program, and one of the issues that she said that she realized some of the others were having was that they didn't want to share their idea because they thought people are going to steal it. And so we're still of this mindset that other people are out there looking to steal our ideas, forgetting that ideas are, there are how many billion, 8 billion of us in the world? We've got 8 billion ideas floating around, probably or more, twice, 10 times that at any one time. And it's about who grabs it. You know, we don't own an idea. What we own is the execution of that idea and what we manifest from it. So we haven't yet been able to change that mindset of seeing that I have ownership of that it's not just about me, is that I now need to make sure the next generation understand what's at stake and what they stand to lose if we don't actually work together. If I don't take the best of what I know, my experience, add it to your youthfulness and your risk-taking ability and the ideas that you're coming up with, and create something new. We still haven't gotten there. And I think it's going to take those of us in this age range, 30 to 50, who have teenagers who now realize, wait, if I don't set my kid up differently, they're going to have a very, very scary future. We're the ones that kind of cross the divide between the old ways of things and the new ways. And so we now have to work doubly harder, because it's no longer the older people that are going to do it. It's going to be us. And we have to now take them through that process of, this is what it means to be in business. This is what it's going to mean to stay consistently in business. And now, how do you take that technology that you're sitting there on all day and turn it into money? That's something every day I challenge my kids. They want to sit there and consume the fact that they can sit there and watch people play video games, you know what I mean? Or for hours on YouTube watching some vlogger comb their child's hair or figure out whether they want to be vegan or not. I'm like, okay, what can you create on this platform?
And that's a good. And before you go into that, I would like to touch on that, but I also like to actually put into real context a situation that happened here recently, because I'm also the president of the Barbados ICT Professionals Association, and we had a workshop, or at least a little, 2-hour retreat, to look at some of the issues that were affecting digital startups. And what blew my mind was, one guy said he was working with a young company, well, at least some young guys who had a wonderful idea for an app, and they weren't sure how to get it into the market and where to go. And they went to one of our local business facilitation organizations that was government funded. And basically they turned him down, as in, we can't help him. The idea was fantastic. When told to me myself, that sounds like it has good international potential. But they outright said, we don't really service this sort of thing.
Yes.
And what that is scary, because you start off by saying that government is laying off these workers, because of technology. But what you've also alluded to is the fact that who remains might not be technological literate either. They just survived the shakeout. So It's almost like saying, we may be moving towards a more leaner, meaner government, but those that have remained, might be still doubling down on an old way of doing business. And this young guy, or these young guys, were basically broken because, if they did not know, they expected the local business facilitation unit to help them. But if those business facilitation units themselves are not equipped to understand digital business and digital business models and e-commerce business models, you're going to find that we're going to only frustrate our young people even more, because they're going to be excited, to bring the idea to life, looking for those mentors of which you speak. And they themselves are not even equipped to even understand the value of what these digital products can actually bring, not only from economic benefit, but also from a socio-economic development standpoint. Because a lot of these jobs that are created with new companies have higher wages attached to it, have higher standards of return in terms of the labor market and what it means internationally. Because if you think about it, you go work for, a new hot startup. No one cares that you're the janitor. The fact you worked on a hot new startup means that people are going to give you notice. If I went to Google and said I worked at Google as even a janitor, right? The mere fact you worked at Google and had the Google experience to some extent gives you value. But if you don't even know how to place value on new hot products that have a local flavor and a local experience, we're going to rob our young people of a future that is so sorely needed right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. No, you're absolutely right. And funny enough, I have a similar example for you, and it's from a regional organization, and they totally overlooked a young startup coming with something totally different, but they were so focused on just technology that was around a mobile app they weren't able to deal with anything that didn't fit into that formula.
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And so what's happening, and I think what has always happened, is that I remember when I first became an entrepreneur, I remember spending a lot of time searching, trying to find other Caribbean entrepreneurs, trying to see who was online talking about entrepreneurship and the challenges from a Caribbean perspective. There wasn't anybody. So I began to write. I began to share tips about how I was doing this, and whether it was selling gift baskets or whatever I was doing at the time. I started to document that. And what often happens is, as I say, we're building the train track as we're building the train, as the train is coming down the track. So the same people that are now struggling to figure out how do we work in this technology space are going to be the same ones that are going to be left having to document what they're doing. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is at this point, because we still haven't managed to figure out, we have to work together to get this done. So one of the things I really encourage my people to do, it doesn't matter where you are on your journey, is document it. Whether it's the YouTube, whether it's your blog, whether it's your Instagram account that you're using to take photos of your progress as you go through it, that is actually what is fueling all of the content that you see created. One of our problems in the region, and I know people in Africa tend to have the same issue as well, is we look for perfection. We want to show people the final product.
Preach.
And we are absolutely not comfortable talking about, let's use this for an example. You're 300 or 400 pounds and you going on this new track because your doctor says you've got to lose 200 pounds. We're not very comfortable showing you that journey. We want to show you the end product of us at 150 pounds,
right.
And we treat business the same way. We treat our website the same way. That's why we spend so much time tweaking and changing the logo and doing this and doing that, because it's never right. I have people who have bought camera equipment, audio equipment, everything, and they haven't started a blog, nothing, because they're stuck trying to be perfect in an imperfect world.
But no, and what's worse is that they look at the companies that exist now. This is one of my number one bugbears with the Caribbean experience. They look, I remember this was years ago and it hasn't changed. And the reason why it hasn't changed is that it's gotten worse. I remember when Amazon became the Amazon that we know today, one guy came into my company and said he wanted a website just like Amazon. I looked at him and I smiled and I said to myself, well, sir, do you have $1 million to spend? All right. And he's like, what? $1 million? All right. And I said, okay, well, list the services that you want this website to do. He listed almost everything that was there on Amazon, but no one remembers when Amazon just sold books. No one remembers when Amazon, and I watched Amazon because I had a faith in that it was going to be what it was. Amazon was started and they just had 1 meg of bandwidth to the organization. 1 meg. We're talking about Amazon that have no gigs of data available and dark fiber available. Started with 1 meg. We have a problem with step 1. We have a problem taking that first step because we see where we want to be and where others are. And unless we can get to the finish line, we're not prepared to take that one step. That guy could have worked with me and built a small project. But unless he could build something to compete with Amazon, and I go back to my original point, we are looking so much at the North American perspective that we're failing to view our own value.
Okay, so we need to begin to wrap this up. The time is flying by, but just a couple of points I want to make. And many of them, I think you all touched on in various ways. The whole issue of the fear of failure and that whole construct that still exists in the region, as well as education, training people for a job, but probably not necessarily giving them the confidence or empowering our people to really chart their own path professionally. We're still looking in the 21st century to be employed. So Nerissa and I guess Stephen thereafter, I guess the question is, how can we leverage technology to increase the job opportunities in the region? What can we do? What would you recommend?
If you don't mind, Nerissa, I will start off. I think that part of it has to be a conversation that I think, Michelle, thanks again for having this, is starting. We have a problem within the region in terms of confidence. And right now, what I would like to see in Barbados, and it's not happening, is very important to have technology conferences. And what properly thought out technology conferences do, it allows players within the development space to meet those people who may have more resources or have different access than you. So if you have a young person that is a dreamer that has an idea, and you hold a properly structured tech conference, you may find a Nerissa there who can speak to about coaching. You could then find a person there who has built a symbiotic product or have a symbiotic experience. But we need to get the conversation started. And a proper conference that I like right now is something called South by Southwest in the States. Mm-hmm. Because when I talk about a tech conference, you're thinking more along the lines of a CNET and these things where the product is already built out. But what I like South by Southwest is a content and IT conference, meaning that you can see filmmakers there, you see other types of people within fashion, you see how technology is influencing everything. So if we have a Caribbean South by Southwest where you get like my brother, he's a designer, you get my brother who's a designer talking to IT people. You get some person who's probably a young filmmaker talking to other IT people and fashion talking to filmmaking, and you go down the line and you start having a conversation, then you would find that it starts to move out being an IT bugbear, IT talk thing, techie talk. I don't want to see a traditional IT conference, but we definitely something within the Caribbean that is a platform to start the conversation, to bring others together, and not in IT specifically, talking about hardware and servers and RAM and virtualization. That is something that would derail the Caribbean experience. What we need to bring together is technology with our own cultural nuance and our own cultural perspective.
Excellent. Nerissa?
Oh, he got me excited. Because about 15 years ago, I did a conference called Yes, and that's basically what it was. It was about the tech people, the fashion people, all the creatives in the same space learning from each other. Maybe it's time to revive that. But two things I want to say to answer your question, Michelle. First, I think we need to admit that our current way of behaving and practicing isn't working and isn't going to work. So we actually need to just abort the current behavior on all levels. Second, we each need to take responsibility for being the change that we want to see in the world. I have to believe it's going to start with me. I have to innately begin to feel I have something to contribute to the island I'm in, the Caribbean I'm in, the world I am in, and I have to begin to believe that. Because all the technology is there, but then we're not using it because we don't believe we actually have the capacity to use it in a way that makes sense. I mean, for me, technology absolutely changed my life. I wrote my way out of a domestic violence situation. I wrote my way into jobs. Just being able to, the first conference, like I said, I did it just from writing articles and inviting people I didn't even know to come and speak and to raise sponsorship, out of nothing, out of an idea, all because it was possible. So we have to individually believe that we have something to contribute. And we also then have to feel that we need to share it with the new generation. Each of us can be a mentor. Each of us can answer their question honestly when they ask us about finances and how do you do this and how do you do that. One of the things I recently did was, because I'm really trying to focus more, there were some parts of my business that I just couldn't give the time to. Yes, I could have probably hired someone, but instead I found a young person who had an interest in social media. And I said, hey, I want to give you some of my clients. I'm just going to give them to you. I made the introductions and there they are servicing those clients now and guiding them along the way just to encourage them to be consistent and to deliver good service so that you can continue to get paid and grow that business. We have to decide that's our responsibility. It's not the government, it's not the other. It is each of us that's going to hear this podcast that we're going to have a conversation with. We need to tell them, this is your job. You need to fix it. We need to do it. If we want the Caribbean to be different, we are the ones that are going to have to do it. I mean, for anybody that's going to hear this, start writing. Put it on paper. Put it on a blog. If you don't like talking, do a vlog or artwork, pictures, whatever it is. But create something that tells somebody a story about your life and about how you are able to navigate that space and what you're learning. It does, and if you see the content that's coming from all over the world, it's coming on all different levels. So there is no wrong or right to this, but they are sharing, and they're sharing it in the way they are before they become perfect. We need to give up this desire to be perfect and just allow our best, what we have to offer to just be presented. And only then are we going to see it get better. I mean, if my son plays football, if he wants to be a good football player, he's got to show up to practice. He doesn't get to be a great football player in his head alone. He actually has to go out there and do the work. Same thing, I have a daughter that sings. She's got to rehearse. She's got to practice her vocals if she wants to get stronger. The same thing with us. If we want to see technology work for us, we actually need to use it. And then we need to seriously begin to see how we can monetize it. That's something we're not comfortable with for many of us still. Charge something for it. Begin to see that what your idea in your head has great value, and that is what's going to add to the value of the region as a whole.
Excellent. All right, so Stephen, you're up next. So the topic again was the opportunities and threats to the Caribbean ICT skills market, given the dynamics of a big data-driven world. So that's a big mouthful, but I think the points at least I want to make as a jump-off point is that we do see that globally we're moving more towards Internet of Things, machine-to-machine communication, as well as the deepening of the study and application of data and analytics. And from what I understand, there is considerable scope for jobs from big data. And even at this point, big data expertise outstrips supply. And I would think, of course, that would be just a good thing and very lucrative for those who want to get into it. But Stephen, it seems as if you want us to more carefully consider the potential impact of big data on the Caribbean ICT skills market. What are you seeing?
Okay, what I'm seeing right now is I have not seen in Barbados, so I don't know what it is in Montserrat and Jamaica specifically, and I stand to be corrected if the experience is somewhat different. But there is University of the West Indies, and then there's BCC that teach programming to a functional level. But what the concentration has been on is almost specifically towards just programming and not application. And when I say application, you're talking about big data, you're talking about Internet of Things, and these are high-level functions that go beyond just learning to program in Java or learning to program web applications in PHP. They have a higher advanced level of thinking and almost system preparation. What I am seeing is a situation where our skill set has not evolved, meaning that the way our programmers seem to be thinking seems to be along the same way as 10 years ago. There are people who have come out into the workforce, and because of the work environment, may have to evolve that thinking. But what I have not seen, and this is the scary part, the Zuckerbergs, the Microsofts, in terms of Bill Gates, these guys were excited to program and develop and try in college. If you are not excited, right now, when I take on interns, I tell them, if you leave my organization and you have not built something innovative, or you leave University of the West Indies and you don't have a software portfolio, you're wasting time. Meaning that I would not think, Nerissa or Michelle, that if a graphic artist was to leave and with a degree, that they don't have a portfolio of work. Exactly. They don't have a portfolio of what's possible. Even though you might not use that skill, it is used to show a potential employer or a client what your skill set is. So where I'm going with this, imagine if no one in Barbados or around the region is talking about data analytics, data analysis, but you can take a theoretical application from a bank and build an application around data analysis. Or you can take the concept, and one concept I can bring and show you right now. I was in conversation with a employee of the Coastal Zone Management Unit. And in Barbados, they are part and parcel of the emergency services. They're saying right now that you can have, or he would like to have, almost a weather net using Internet of Things, meaning that you may have a little weather system, almost like a little meteorological device on your house, right? That communicates with one in St. Lucie and one in St. Michael and all over Barbados, and they all talk to each other to give up-to-date weather information. These things he pointed out to me are no more than maybe $100, $200. And I'm saying to myself, that's not very expensive. We have laptops that cost 10 times as much that we used to play video games on alone. Mm-hmm. But our young people aren't going there, and they're not developing those high-level skills because they just focus on getting a job. So what's going to happen is when businesses start calling for big data programmers, guess what they're going to do? You're going to open the paper and the paper is going to say, no one has been found with acceptable skills. We have to apply for a job that is going to come from overseas, apply for the position that's going to come from overseas. And you're going to find that this is going to happen more and more within the IT space. And it's not because businesses themselves don't want the skills, but businesses themselves do not know. But it's our young people that should be inquisitive, should have that level of curiosity to say, you know what? Let me try my hand at this. Let me try to write a program that challenges the status quo. Even if it fails, they would have learned something. But we don't have that curiosity, and what is going to happen is that jobs in the IT space are going to get more advanced than our curiosity or our education can keep up. And we're going to see more layoffs if we in the IT space, because the IT jobs are remaining now because it's the old jobs that are going. But the IT jobs that are currently remaining are almost a embryonic style of programming and conceptualization because it's becoming outdated, because we are moving to the Internet of Things, because we are moving to big data. And that's not where our educational system or our curiosity is being focused on right now.
Wow. Well, I'm going to say what I said a little bit earlier when I said that what we have is not working. That includes our education system. And we have to teach our young people how to learn differently. And that is to create that level of curiosity. The way we do things now, they open the book, we say, this is what's there, and that's it. And then we ask them to regurgitate it on the test, and we mark them accordingly. Technology, if you talked about Mark and all those people that created the tools that we're using now, they believe in collaboration. They're not in there trying to do it all themselves. We have to create a space where our young people can reach out across the border and do that. I'm going to pick on my kids again, but my son also, he's a programmer. He's been an intern with a local tech company. And one of the things that they've encouraged them to do is just to Google and search YouTube to get other answers to figure out how to solve the problem that they have. He recently, I think, joined StackFlow, it's called, Stephen, to be able to query other people in the world who may be doing the same software programming code as he is learning to figure out how to solve a problem. So, yes, we have to teach them how to learn differently so that they can continue to grow. Everything is as obsolete the minute it's being created. So imagine if in our school systems, those that are getting tech degrees are coming out with 10-year-old versions of how to code and how to do that. I mean, come on, they're irrelevant. So our educational system has to change. And I'm going to even go further and say parents have to do more work to not rely on schools, but to basically ensure that your child creates that inquisitive nature. And that's not solved just by putting a tablet in their hand. You actually need to create the questions and teach them how to learn.
Absolutely.
What I would say is that Barbados, I think, is about to start an initiative where we're looking to teach coding in schools. In the sense that, I've been advocating for teaching coding as young as 5 years old, but it's called, it's more logic learning. So it's not teaching like C++, Java, PHP, ASP.NET. It is more teaching the logic that follows programming at a very early age. Just like how we learn Spanish, French, German, and kids pick it up a lot quicker than adults that want to learn a language at 40, my age, 40 plus. when you're 6, 7, and you're told about the concepts of programming, you're going to take to it more like a duck to water than if you are my age now and want to learn programming from my age. Not saying it's impossible, but when you now have that level of logic learning and curiosity and that fertile mind, you need to attack it when it is most fertile and most able to adapt to new things. My 5-year-old daughter on a tablet doesn't inquire why. She just does it natively, because for her, moving from a PC to a tablet, I had a learning curves. For her, my computer does not work because when she touches the screen doesn't move on my tablet, on my laptop.
Yes.
So for her, my laptop does not work. And one of the things that we find ourselves in right now as a people is that we're teaching our kids on technology that when they leave school has no bearing on their future. And it's a real problem within the Caribbean because the education system is being outpaced almost three years to one. So by the time that my 5-year-old daughter becomes 15, 16, ready to leave the traditional school environment, she's going to be dealing with technology that really and truly, when she gets into the workforce, might not even be relevant. It's almost a 3-year to 1 ratio, whereas where she is right now is being outstripped with the demand that's coming.
Absolutely. So, Stephen, let me ask a question. So, what do you think might be the opportunities? I guess just going back to the whole theme and topic of your segment.
Well, what I would say the opportunities are, this may seem weird, Michelle, but I would say information aggregation. All right, and let me break that down a little bit. In Barbados, the number one, I would tell anybody this, I like to have a challenge with them. The number one and most successful e-business in Barbados is a site called Caribbean. It aggregates all of the properties in terms of real estate into one local site. Mm-hmm. That is forming part of big data, all the nuances for a property. You can go deeper into what the land value is, and you can go very deep into providing better quality information. So where I would say there is probably 2 areas. I would say that things relating to information aggregation, so you can do that for cars and parts and whatever, because in Barbados is a big car country, so you can actually have a website or a platform that caters to everything dealing with cars and put it under one roof. And then you could now spin out into other information-driven areas, almost to become a Carfax. For Barbados, that's an opportunity for a young person to say, I love cars. Let me provide that level of service to my country and maybe replicate it across the region and have that type of business. The other thing that I would say is that we are very much a home-driven country. So technology that surrounds the home, such as smart homes, is one that is that's a field that's wide open. And in Barbados, it is only specifically dealing with the upper echelon homes. Right now, I have been looking at smart home solutions for modest income homes where you can actually, for me and my house right now, if I am overseas, I can open the door and let someone in my house, from my app. If I could talk to my home and tell my home, open the door, and I ain't spent a lot of money. I just look for the right technology, and with a little bit of programming skill, if I had it, because I'm not really a programmer, I can carry that even further. I'm more connected. So the 2 areas that I would like to see the region get involved with, and I say this because it is, to my mind, the most practical is real estate. So developing technologies for the real estate industry, but also aggregating information platforms where I don't have to go to 6 different locations, either on the web or physically, to get one specific piece of information. Okay. And I think that if that is looked at, you would find that we would start to build out our own experiences. And the one thing that cuts across everything is the hospitality sector. Mm. So, and I'm ending with I'm saying 3 things: the hospitality sector, information aggregation, and smart homes. Because in Barbados, and the Barbados experience is, if it isn't about the hotels, the other industries struggle. So if the hotel sector is doing well, and you could find innovative ways to use technology to integrate into farming, use platforms to integrate the hotel into manufacturing, start using the same information aggregation to link industries into the hotel sector. Because let's face it, the Caribbean is a hotel zone. I mean, we have other indigenous industries. But if we look at the hotel sector as the one thing that uniquely binds all of us as Caribbean people together and start to find information platforms of data sharing, big data analysis, we can start pull out we can start to extract better customer relationship information, better customer experiences, because we start to share information at a high level, not intelligence to the sense that, I'm going to tell you about my experience at my hotel, but top level information that I thought, Nerissa and Michelle, that would have happened because of Cricket World Cup. We had a wonderful opportunity where the whole region was on the same page. And I thought we would have had an opportunity back then to start building Caribbean systems of information sharing, true information platforms, where we didn't see ourselves as competitors, but like how the United States sees itself as states, and to start actually having co-opetition, where we look at cooperation, but still we compete with each other, but we set a base standard of what information we're going to share and build platforms that the region can leverage.
Excellent. Nerissa, any points that you might want to raise, whether or not opportunities or threats that you might be seeing, or how we might be able to better leverage big data?
I'm loving this conversation, Stephen. Such great information there. I think one of definitely something that we're not using, and it doesn't even matter the size of the company, is we're not even collecting that data. It might be as simple as a hairdressing salon keeping a little card with all of the information for every person, their hair quality, what they prefer, their favorite hair color, how often, their average sales. You need to start collecting that sort of information, because when you have that will turn into future products for you and future ways of marketing to find other customers like that. And so just like big data is important, data on every level is important. And I think that's something that most companies still aren't really taking advantage of. The Facebook scandal didn't just happen out of nowhere. It's because they understand the importance of all of the information that we've been putting online. And if you pay attention now to Facebook now versus Facebook even 2 years ago, you will see how much more you're being sold to, because now they figure out who you are and what you like to see in your feed. We need to be doing that same thing and collecting that sort of information, turning it into a platform. I absolutely love that, Stephen. I'm here taking notes as well. Information is absolutely where we all need to be looking. It doesn't even matter, again, what you think your area is. It's how can you become the source, the ultimate source that people turn to find information. And that is what you can then leverage and monetize in various ways.
Excellent. Folks, our time has flown by, so I'm just going to ask that we begin to wrap up. So, Stephen, I'll let you go first, and then Nerissa, and then I'll just sign off.
Michelle, what I would say is, amongst all of what we've said, I want to make, I guess, and you have a good following, I urge the region to pass with some speed the data protection legislation. Those countries, including my own Barbados, to do it with a level of urgency, because things like the GDPR, if we're going to go into big data and collecting data and exploiting it, we're going to have to make sure that we protect ourselves and those businesses who want to get into the particular industry by ensuring we have the right legislation to come into the playing field. Don't be afraid to actually get out there and start doing, even though we may not have all of the legislative frameworks in place, because just as Nerissa said, we are a region that look for perfection to even consider to start. And that is a hamstring to innovation, is a hamstring to economic development, because I can tell you, just like government and more I see regional players and countries looking towards government stimulating the economy through different programs, as well as large businesses and foreign direct investment. It is a small, innovative businesses that really change the landscape of our economic fortunes. And if you have a situation where, a small hairdresser can now become a regional player in design because she put up an Instagram following and created a story, and from there, she has fallen all over the world. She might be able to sell her technique, maybe she may even venture into making her own products that have aloes in it. Use the technology to now get that message out about the Caribbean way of even dress, style, and fashion. But we must make a start and realize that, the world has changed. How are we going to change with it? And there are a number of different players that must come to the table. There must be government understanding with their institutions that help leverage the local experience and make those institutions relevant to what is now facing our region, which is digital services must get a understanding within the funding and lending agencies. The private sector must get on board and accept the fact that you just can't keep cutting staff and using technology only for cutting and efficiency, but use technology to leverage for growth. And also, finally, the educational portion. I want my people to be when I say my people, I talk about Caribbean people, to understand that technology isn't there to take away jobs, but to create more opportunities. Because if you grab this bull by the horns and take what we have as a people and who we are creative, we are energetic, we are fun. We can take those same principles and infuse them with technology and create wonderful things to give ourselves a higher standard of living, a better way of life, all wrong. And I know that this is something that can't beat us for long.
Wonderful.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Stephen was preaching there.
Yes. All right.
So let me just add a few points. Again, it starts with me. It starts with you. So if you know that in your life you need things to be different, I want you to see technology as an opportunity for you to make it different and better. So it doesn't matter what you are into, technology is probably the solution to be able for you to do more of what you're doing more efficiently, more cost effectively, and reach larger people and make more money. So think about technology as your best support rather than something to be intimidated by. You've got to build a really solid digital footprint. If you know you're about to be cut or there are layoffs happening and you're not sure about your future, if you Googled yourself, what does the internet say about you? You need to create a space and a conversation online that absolutely reflects who you are, what you're passionate about, what you believe in. If you're changing a career and you're thinking, I need to begin to position myself to be a consultant or to move into a completely different area that you've never been, what are you saying online about this expertise, this knowledge that you have? Begin to share that. And don't even be intimidated by the word expertise. You could be just a beginner and you want to share as you go along. Maybe you're one of those people who's building the tracks while the train is coming down. Do it anyway. Talk to us about what you're doing. Share your stories on your Instagram and your vlogs and your blogs and write your articles. Start to send opinion pieces to your local paper or your digital online press. Begin to make a name for yourself, but definitely, do that. Use the technology to add more streams of income, because we do need more of that. There are lots of amazing people creating products in the region. We just don't know about it because they're not online or they're consistently online. Just do more of it because we do need you. And I think it's the collective of all of our works that's actually going to raise the volume about the Caribbean tech space.
Excellent.
Agreed.
All right, so I don't really have much to say. You all have really said everything that I probably may have wanted to say. The only thing that I will just highlight, and again, it came up through the discussions, is, the fact that here in the region, we really do have some endemic problems where, whether it's education, the fear of failure, and in that respect, there can be a lot of going against us. But I do believe in the resilience of the region and the talent that is here. So it really is about us stepping outside of what might be the status quo, because I think if there's anything that this discussion has highlighted is the wealth of opportunities that are available even in the region, here in the region. You don't necessarily have to go outside to create those opportunities. So, I hope that at least our audience takes that away and help to spread the word as we move forward. All right, folks. So thank you so much. This has just been an excellent discussion, and maybe we might need to do a repeat because I think, sadly, I may have had to cut the conversation short at some various points just to hopefully keep us on track and within time.
No, I'm open to it. This was fun.
Oh, definitely, Michelle.
All right. Okay, so take care and, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks,
All
you
right.
too. Good day.
Bye-bye.
That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to the ICT Pulse podcast. You can find links to some of the things we talked about on our website, ict-pulse.com. If you like this episode, please show your support by leaving us a review on iTunes, as it will help others find the show. You can email us at info@ict-pulse.com or drop us a note on our Facebook page, facebook.com/ICTPulse, or via Twitter @ICTPulse. We hope you'll join us again for our next episode. Take care.